With Joe Biden being the president-elect and Donald Trump clearly having committed a number of crimes throughout his presidency, you combine those things and the equation would seem to lead to Donald Trump facing legal jeopardy from the federal government. State stuff is a different matter, but from the federal government. And I have been saying, even though it's very unpopular for a number of weeks now, that I have no expectation that they will do literally anything about any of that, because that's not generally how the Democratic Party works. Certainly the part of the Democratic Party that Joe Biden comes from. I just don't see it happening. And what do you know? Reporting today from NBC News, President-elect Joe Biden has privately told advisors that he doesn't want his presidency to be consumed by investigations of his predecessor, according to 5 people familiar with the discussions, despite pressure from some Democrats who want inquiries into Donald Trump. Biden apparently has raised concerns that investigations would further divide a country he's trying to unite and risk making every day of his presidency about Trump. This would include investigations of Trump's taxes or of challenging any orders Trump may issue granting immunity to members of his staff, like pardons before he leaves office. One advisor said Biden had made clear that he wants to just, quote, move on. Obviously, I'm not surprised by this. And look, Biden, what he wants in this is not the be all end all. Obviously, the government is complex and it's not all ruled directly by Joe Biden. But Jason, it's not looking like you're gonna have, a DOJ chanting lock him up as they pursue Donald Trump starting January 20th.
No, he's not. They're not, John. And you're not surprised by Joe Biden wanting this. I'm not surprised by Joe Biden. Joe Biden, President-elect Joe Biden, wanting to move on because one, this year has been a lot. Joe running for office has been a lot, I'm sure. He even from the debates, his whole demeanor has been about what we can do in the future. How can we rebuild? He wants to make America great again.
Oh my God.
But
he does though, kind of like he's flawed in his approach in a few ways, but
it's the truth though. He wants to just take one step forward and let's just get to work. Let's just get to work. There's no need to dwell on the past. There's no need to again continue with this House of Cards drama episode that is President Trump. Let's just get him out. It's been a lot for all of us, and let's just go forward and try to clean up whatever mess we can. Because 4 years, president after president after president hasn't been able to rebuild our country. People, the Americans, and even people outside of our country think that it's a president's job to come in and just make everything perfect. Like it's Candyland, it's all gonna be beautiful. And you can't do that in 1 term, you can't do that in 2 terms. And Joe feels like, look, I have my work cut out for me. So let me just get started on that and do what I can to make good on the promises I've made to the American people. And that's smart. That's him being progressive. That's him being present. That's him being just mature about the presidency. It's not about the reality show of the president. Of a overhaul, if you will, and let me start the engine on that overhaul.
Look, it was relatively easy for me over the past few weeks to predict, as many I'm sure did, that he would want to move on. I mean, it's exactly what Barack Obama did in regards to the George W. Bush administration, which there was a lot that you could have investigated there, but they didn't. They're looking forward, they're not looking back. As to what he should do, I might disagree with you to some extent. I am very torn on it because Donald Trump has clearly committed a lot of crimes. The obstruction of justice that was revealed in the Mueller report is so obvious there. The tax crimes, all sorts of stuff like that. But when Biden says that it would consume his presidency, that's not a terrible point. Now, we could disagree about whether it should, whether it's worth it, but it probably would. I am really torn. It's not like usually I come on air and I'm like, here's what should definitely happen. I think to some extent, I think that if he doesn't pursue it or if he doesn't put pressure on the DOJ, first of all, the DOJ could still investigate things anyway. They're supposed to be independent of the presidency, and I would love to get back to that. But even if they don't, you do still have the ongoing state level investigations, which I like that those are more insulated from the power of the White House, whether the White House is controlled by a Democrat or a Republican. And so I think that you will still get some of those investigations. Well, first of all, the Republicans are never going to accept it, even if it has nothing to do with Joe Biden. But if Joe Biden was in charge of it or his AG was in charge of it, they would definitely not accept it at all. I think everyone watching this knows that.
Right, and also it's because we've been, as you said, you mentioned the many crimes of Trump, the many alleged crimes. Say alleged just for safety for our lawyers, but but the American has been like the butt of Trump's, been the butt of the joke by Trump for the last 4 years, and so yeah, you want to see him you want to see them throw the book at him, you want to see him get put in a slammer, but Joe Biden thinks, I guarantee he's probably thinking about his legacy as well, right? Because Joe Biden's also up there in age. And knows that this may be, I hate to be so nebulous and ominous, but this may be his last hurrah in politics, right? So he probably feels like, look, the work is way more important than the pettiness of what has been the last 4 years. And and you say you're torn, I put myself in Joe Biden's shoes. I would want the same thing too. It's been a lot for us. Division of the country is what he also alluded to and talked about, and that we are very divided. And to continue to drag Trump and the essence of 45 into his presidency is not going to do anyone any good. Who cares now? The damage is done. Move forward and let's rebuild and get people back to work. Have a vaccine for COVID. Try to return to some kind of normalcy, if that's even doable, and just move forward. I mean, just like I said, keep it pushing, keep it moving.
But I will say, while this might be sort of the approach I would advocate for, I would do it acknowledging that there are very real concerns about the consequences of that and what it signals. So if Joe Biden is looking forward and not looking back on this, does that signal that he's not going to prioritize reversing Trump's executive orders? Is he going to prioritize reversing the massive decrease in the corporate tax rate? These other things that Trump did, sure, you don't want to make your presidency all about the Trump presidency, but there was a lot of damage done. And are we just not investigating Trump? Are we also not investigating ICE abuses and border patrol and all of the other excesses of the Trump era? Are we turning a blind eye to all of that? Because that is definitely not something I'm ready to sign on to. So we don't know for sure. We don't know, but that would be part of my concern. And also the precedent that it's setting, or the continued precedent that it continues to set, which is if you get in as president and you break the law, as long as the next president's a Democrat, they're definitely not going to investigate you. I don't like that as a precedent. It's not Joe Biden that's setting that. That has been the way things work for a very long time. But I don't like the idea that, the next Republican president, whether it's Ted Cruz or Tom Cotton or Tucker Carlson, why do they all have names that sound exactly the same? That they'll know I can get away with anything I want because when AOC becomes president after God knows who, they're not going to investigate because they never do. So this is why I'm torn. There are very real consequences and hypothetical consequences that this strategy could lead one to be worried about.
And John, those are absolutely valid and salient points, and I'm glad you touched on that because you're very right. I would imagine that Joe would pick and choose his battles, right? Because you mentioned a whole myriad of different infractions and different wrongdoings by Trump and the Trump administration. Yes, but okay, so which ones do we pick? We can't, he's not the Avengers. We can't go and just try to take on Thanos. He has to go and figure out, okay, which are the most egregious ones? They're all egregious, but again, it's crappy to say, but okay, well, this one, ICE abuse, that's not as bad as this. It's like what it's this huge undertaking that Joe Biden and his administration and Kamala and Vice President-elect Harris will have to decide, okay, well, we gotta let one go in order to, we got to cut off our nose to spite our face. And I think that's what's at, because there's so many egregious infractions that where do you begin? Where do you start? How do you value one or devalue one over the other?
Well, one quick answer would be Congress definitely needs to take up some of this. Like they should have been looking into, remember we found out all about this tax stuff and everybody seems to have forgotten that over the past few weeks. It wasn't that long ago that we found out of all this. It doesn't all have to be on Joe Biden or on the DOJ or on the FBI or God knows what. The states can do some of it, but Congress should be investigating a lot of this too. And I hope that they don't ignore, especially the stuff that's not as directly tied to Donald Trump. Like the hysterectomies and all of that, the child separation. Congress could be having hearings on all of this, and they should. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.